Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, but we're going to head a little bit north for this one, and we're having a look at another beer from a brewery that I have always been quite impressed with, and the main reason for that is that these guys are not scared to try brewing different styles of beer. So for this one then we are going to go to Eskilstuna, which is just out to the west of Stockholm, and we're having a look at yet another beer from Eskilstuna Ölkultur. This one is the Eskilstuna Tripel, and it comes in at 9% ABV. In recent times I've reviewed a Scotch ale from these guys. There was also the Weizen Doppelbock, which turned out to be more of a kind of straight up Doppelbock in my mind. I also had the Quadrupel, which was nice. I also had the Belgian Blonde, and I think there was another one in there at some point that I tried from them as well. But like I say, these guys are a brewery who are very interesting because they try all of these different beer styles, and it's one that I would like to actually go and visit at some point soon. But if you've watched the channel before, you will know that my favourite Belgian styles of beer are the Blonde, the Quadrupel and the Tripel, so this is me kind of rounding off the sort of my three favourites when it comes to those actually. So really curious to see how this one turns out, and hopefully it turns out to be another good beer. The Blonde was very nice, the Quadrupel was very good as well, but I thought it would have benefited from being unfiltered. But we'll see how the Tripel turns out this time, because I always enjoy a good Tripel. But hopefully you guys enjoy my take on this one, and we will see how we get on. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Eskilstuna Ölkultur before. No doubt there will be some more at some point in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Eskilstuna Ölkultur then, on to my brewery notes. So Eskilstuna Ölkultur was founded by the homebrewers Arto Ukkola, Kauko Lakinen, Thomas Humla, Bosse Gustafsson and Anders Olsson. So these guys met at the Swedish Homebrewing Championships, and they decided that they wanted to give Eskilstuna a brewery once again. But together they managed to rent a building in the town centre, and they established a beer bar which was opened at Christmas back in 2003. But once the bar began to do really well, they thought that they should begin to brew some of the beer themselves, and so in 2006 they officially founded Eskilstuna Ölkultur. And for those of you who aren't Swedish speakers, basically it means Eskilstuna beer culture rather. But in 2008 they moved to a larger premises because they outgrew the original brewery and bar, and they were helped by an army of volunteers to get their new premises up and running, and it looks really good, I have to say. But they received their brewing equipment from China in September of 2008, and they've continued to expand their brewing capacity and the range of beers that they produce ever since. In 2018 they brewed around 130,000 litres of beer per year, and for a long time Anders Olsson was the main brewer, but they now have somebody new doing the beers, and Arto Ukkola is one of the main men when it comes to the business side of the company. But they are a very prolific brewery, lots of different styles of beer coming out from these guys, and it tends to be the case that in the småskalig assortment in Systembolaget that you will get a new beer every month actually, and I've been keeping up with that, I think, over the last few months fairly well. I've tried most of the beers that they've released over the last couple of months, and there was a good period of time actually between my first couple of reviews that I did from them and the more recent ones that I've done. But a brewery that I very much enjoy, as I say, not scared to try different styles. There's a lot of German style beers, there's a lot of Belgian style beers from them. They don't do so many of the more American things actually, but I will see if they have had some IPAs and double IPAs and things like that, so I think that's probably the next area that I need to explore from them actually, is one or two IPAs and things like that. But the Belgian style beers always turn out very nice, and the German ones that I've had have also turned out to be pretty nice. So yeah, if you're into your more traditional styles of beer, this is a Swedish brewery that you definitely want to check out. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about Eskilstuna Ölkultur for the moment. This must be review number 6 or 7 I've done from this brewery. like I say, they never disappoint. So yeah, hopefully this is another good beer. But if you want to learn more about them, check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. And there you can see the artwork on this is pretty similar to what you'll find from most of the Eskilstuna Ölkultur beers. I mean, it's just usually the colour of the band around it and the colour of the label that changes, but a lot of them are very, very similar. There you can see at the top of the bottle, there is the Eskilstuna Ölkultur symbol there, and that of course is the building in which you'll find the brewery and bar. I need to, the next time I'm up in Stockholm, I need to see if I can take the train out there and go and visit it, but I think, as is the case with all things in Sweden, or all beer bars and stuff, they'll only open at like 4 o'clock, whereas if they opened at 12 or something, you know, you could make a little day trip of it actually. But I suppose if you did it in the summer, went to see Eskilstuna during the day and then had a couple of beers at like 4 in the afternoon and went back, it would probably work out actually. But yeah, plain bottle cap on this one at 9% ABV, this one. And it tells you on the back here, if we translate, it says Eskilstuna Tripel from the year 2019 is a light Belgian ale coming in at 9% ABV that offers a floral aroma. Big complexity in the flavour, with a light malt sweetness and a spicy character with tones of coriander, I don't know what mandel is, banana and apricots that give a light sourness. The finish is dry, and it gives, I don't know what that word is actually, beska, don't know that one, but it can be, this one can be allowed to age for many years. So yeah, sounds good. Getting impressed with my Swedish these days actually, but a few words in there that I need to brush up on, I have to say. But yeah, kind of cool. It says on the front here, we brew, vi brygger öl med kropp och själ, so that's like we brew beer with like heart and soul, with care and soul, I guess you could say, or passion and soul, something like that. But yeah, nicely presented beer, this one, 330 millilitres. This was released on the 3rd of March 2019 through the local and småskaligt assortment in Systembolaget here in Sweden. So yeah, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I'm not sure if you will find this beer abroad in other countries, but like I say, this is a brewery that I always enjoy trying things from, because it is more classic styles of beer that they're producing, so it's always good to try the new releases from Eskilstuna Ölkultur, and I have been impressed with the ones in the past. I think probably the 12, the Scotch Ale, is probably my favourite one, but you know, I'm a bit biased there. The Doppelbock, the 13 was good, but it was supposed to be a Weizen Doppelbock. It wasn't quite the style I was expecting, but as a beer, it was very, very nice. The Blonde was good, the Quadruple was good, albeit I thought it should have been unfiltered. But yeah, we'll see how we go with this one, my other favourite Belgian style that I've not tried from them yet. So yeah, as you can see with this one has poured a nice, quite rich amber. You can see the head on this. There was about a quarter to a third finger of a frothy cream coloured head on this beer, but it's just faded away to be a very light, kind of thin, foamy layer. And I mean, when it's a 9%er, around that kind of area, you are going to struggle to keep to maintain the head on the beer. But yeah, a nice kind of blondie amber colour, this one, which is what you'd expect. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, or where the head was. But overall, it looks pretty nice. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see this Tripel is actually pretty clear. So this is going to be an interesting thing, because that was the criticism I had of the Quadruple, was that I thought it should have maybe been unfiltered actually. So this one obviously is a filtered beer as well, so we'll just need to see. But I think it really just depends on what brewery you get these styles from. Some of the breweries filter, some of them don't actually, but then again, if you age the beer for a number of years, you are going to get sedimentation and things, and then that will give you the impression of the beer being unfiltered. And I am drinking this one, you know, fairly fresh. Yeah, I'm drinking this one pretty much straight up because I wanted to try it. So I might get another bottle of this, because this wasn't too expensive. This was only like 30 or 40 kroners, if I remember correctly. So I might get another one of these and age it a little bit and see how it goes. I've not aged very many triples, to be honest with you. But yeah, in terms of appearance, nothing overly surprising about this one, but I would say this is one of the more amber coloured tripels that I remember seeing. So yeah, let's have a look at the aroma then and see how we get on. Oh yeah, this is definitely one of the more kind of malty kind of smelling ones, but the yeasty qualities come out of there absolutely beautifully. Now the thing that's always interesting with the Belgian brewing, especially the high alcohol beers, is that they add a little bit of candy sugar usually into them, and they do that with the Tripel and the Quadruple. I don't think they usually do it with the Double, but I might be mistaken there. But yeah, the candied sugar, you can smell that straight away. It's got this kind of biscuity, McVitie's digestive-y type thing to it, but it smells a little bit more like a kind of straight brown sugar that you would put in tea or whatever. But yeah, straight away with this one you can smell that lovely doughy, bready, yeasty quality, but I would say that generally this beer leans a little bit more towards the kind of sweet caramelly notes. The caramelly note out of this one does have a little bit of toastiness to it, but it really comes across as very, very sweet actually. McVitie's digestives, biscuity notes, and all of that. This has got a lovely aroma to it. I can see why they say there's a little bit of coriander on the bottle of this one, because you do get a little bit of that kind of spicy note. It's almost a little bit clovey as well actually, which is nice. But yeah, to me this is quite a brown sugary smelling beer, this one. I like how this, how all of this goes together actually. Yeah, the aroma in here is very, very nice, I have to say. Could sit and smell that all day. Other than that, it's got a little bit, you can pick out a little touch of earthiness with this one, and there's some nice floral and grassy notes in there. It does have a little bit of a hoppy character. Usually when it comes to these beers, they tend, the Belgian hops are kind of a cross between the German noble ones and the English ones. As I've explained in other videos, I've always felt that the English hops have a slightly darker earthiness to them, and they're a bit more herbal in terms of the green side of things, whereas the German hops are a bit brighter, and you know, the floral notes come out a bit more, and the grassiness is a bit brighter, and the earthiness is just that little bit lighter and almost sweet as well actually. That's what I would always say. But yeah, the aroma to this beer is very nice. So I would think it's kind of, the Belgian hops have a little bit more of the darker earthiness and also a bit of the herbal quality, but they do have the brighter grassiness of the German hops, and you can pick that out of this right away. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, you do get those typical banana notes which will be coming from the yeast, but on the hoppy side of things, yeah, some apricots, you know, a little bit of a kind of mango-y type thing as well maybe, papayas. Yeah, it's all that kind of typical light fruitiness, maybe a bit of an apple-y, peary type. Pear's probably the better one actually. It definitely has a little bit of that kind of candied apple-y, peary sort of thing to it, but the softer peary notes rather than the sharper apple ones. That's probably a better descriptor for this beer. But yeah, the aroma on that is really nice. Definitely one of the sweeter and more biscuity type tripels that I've come across in terms of its aroma. So yeah, keep that in mind when you try this one. Have a little look at the aroma first before you actually go on and taste this beer. I think it will be really very nice actually. So yeah, let's have a look at this one then and see how we get on. This one is the Eskilstuna Tripel, the 2019 edition from Eskilstuna Ölkultur in Eskilstuna, saying that word a lot, out to the west of Stockholm here in Sweden. A brewery that I've always quite enjoyed. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål. That's quite nice, yeah. I like that. Again, this is the thing where I pick up with that. I'm sure I said this about both the blonde and the quadruple as well. These beers, they come across as very clean. And a lot of that, you know, this is a thing you're always going to get with the breweries in the Nordic countries. They've got very good water. So the beers just, they feel really, really clean. And you get that with this one straight away. And quite often with these breweries, you know, the beers will have all the flavour you expect, but the mouthfeel will be slightly different. We see that, if you, for example, one of my favourite breweries back home is 6 Degrees North. They brew the Belgian style beers in Scotland, and you know, you see the same thing. Like, we've got very good quality water up in Angus, and you get, you know, you can feel that in those beers. They just feel a little bit cleaner than the Belgian ones, if you like, because they don't feel quite as thick almost, and you get that straight away with this beer. But I will say, this is nice once again, so not surprised from Eskilstuna. They are a very capable brewery. Yeah, I like this one. And I mean, I was talking in the aroma about how this one, it was quite, I was saying the aroma came across as being really brown sugary, and you do get that in this. This is one of the slightly sweeter tripels that you come across, but when you go further into the aftertaste, that's when you start to get the other elements that you expect out of this one. We do have to remember as well that it is quite, you know, this beer is quite young. I'm drinking it quite fresh, so probably the more bready, doughy notes would come out a little bit more with a wee bit of aging, but I was just keen to try this one because it's a style that I enjoy, and I actually, to be honest, I can't remember the last tripel that I had, come to think of it. So yeah, that was the reason why I chose this one. And I think initially when I tried when I tried the Eskilstuna Ölkultur again recently, I think it was just because it was styles that I hadn't had in a little while. But they've certainly done a nice job of this. But let's try and break the flavour down a little bit more. So yeah, middle of your palate then, you can feel that nice doughy, bready yeast, you know, that blankets the middle of the tongue. Like I said, obviously because of the water and things like that, this beer, the doughy, bready, yeasty base, it does feel a little bit lighter and a little bit cleaner than you might find from the Belgian and Dutch and probably French brewed tripels as well. But the flavour that you get in the aftertaste is exactly what you would expect. I do see this one does have a good bit of that kind of coriander-y and clovey type spice. You can feel that towards the back of the palate. That does come out more and more the further you go out into the aftertaste. If you go to the very front kind of corners of your palate and move in a little bit, you start to get some kind of woody undertones out of this beer as well. But in the very centre of the palate, that's where you get the brown sugary notes. In the very centre of your tongue, it feels like a very, very thick oily caramel, and as you move further out from that, it becomes a little bit more kind of syrupy, if you like, and then you start to get some of these McVitie's digestive biscuity notes out of it. But yeah, this one really is one of the kind of more sugary, brown sugary leaning tripels that I remember having. But I like that about it. I like it when you try these styles from different breweries and they've all got their own kind of quirks and nuances and stuff. That's one of the reasons I quite like doing these reviews for you. So yeah, thumbs up to Eskilstuna for this one. It's nice to have a slightly different edge on the tripel actually. I would really be quite interested to see how these would age a little bit, so maybe I need to get a bottle of the quad and the tripel and just, you know, keep them somewhere for a couple of years and see how they age actually, or buy a few of them, because they really, for what they are, they really were not very expensive at all. That's one of the other things you can say about these. I'm sure they're only about 40 crowns each or something, which is pretty, you know, it's pretty crazy for what they are actually. But yeah, this is really nice. I can see what they're saying. They were saying on the back of the bottle there that you do get a bit more of a kind of spiciness out of this, and it really does get a little bit more spicy. The further you go into the aftertaste, you can feel the centre of your palate drying out, but the big oiliness in the middle of the tongue lingers there too. On the hoppy side of things, back corners of the palate, there is a little bit of earthiness there. It is a wee bit darker, so I do suspect they might have used some Belgian hops in here. But as you come further forward along the sides of the palate, there's some nice floral aromaticity. Then round the front curve of the tongue, it's just that little bit lighter and grassy. Then behind the front curve of the palate, that's where you get that little oily bubble where those big oily and the oily fruity esters start to roll out of the beer. Brain's not working in this video, but yeah, the fruity notes really come out nicely on the front of the tongue. I don't get too much in the way of banana out of this beer now that I think of it. There is a little bit, in the aftertaste, and again towards the back of the palate when you get the doughy, yeasty kind of things coming out. But yeah, I mean, it's the fruity side of this beer is very nice actually, and that's more on the front of the palate. So yeah, at the front of the tongue then, if you go to the back of that oily, fruity part of the beer, the oily bubble that I always talk about with the fruity esters, you start to get, there is a little bit of a kind of sultana-like quality to this one. Like it's like that dried kind of white, green, grapey sort of thing. You really get a good bit of that out of this beer. Apricot, definitely. They said that on the bottle, but you know, it's quite often, quite common rather, that you'll get apricot out of these Tripel beers. It's quite a common thing that. I want to say there's a good bit of a kind of peary ester to this one. I mean, for me it is apricots, pears, and that sort of dried sultana-y type quality there. There is a wee bit of a kind of, it's not quite lemon and lime, but there is a wee bit of a kind of citrusy, grassy type quality on the very front edge of your tongue as well. The hoppy side of this beer, there's not too much of that. I mean, I think you're lucky to get about 15 or 20 IBUs out of a Tripel at most. But this one is, this one really is very nice. It's a big oily beer, this, and the way the fruits come out is really quite nice as well. So if you like your Tripels to be a little bit sweeter and a little bit more oily and fruity, then this is one that's going to tick the boxes for you. I certainly like this, and I wouldn't hesitate to drink it again, but you know, the Tripel for me, it is always a bit of a treat. You know, it's not a beer you're going to go and session actually, so yeah, bear that in mind. Yeah, I definitely would say that with this beer, the more and more you drink of it, some of the woody notes and the doughy, kind of bready, yeasty sort of thing at the back of the palate, that pushes its way out a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste as well. I like how this beer comes across actually. It's got quite a different feel to it than the original Belgian ones. And again, the thing I would say about it is I do wonder about the filtering and unfiltering of, or the filtered versus non-filtered. That was the same thing I said about the quadruple, but then again, if you age the beer, you'll get the sediment coming out of it, and that'll probably help it kind of thicken up a little bit almost. So yeah, it'd be interesting to try filtered versus unfiltered with this one again, but in terms of the flavour profile of the beer, it has everything you would want from this style. So again, Eskilstuna have pulled off a really nice example of a classic beer style, which is great, and that's what they do. They like trying these different beer styles. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, this is quite a full-bodied beer for me. Yeah, carbonation's very smooth. The mouthfeel, as I said, is quite oily. It does have a little bit of dryness later in the flavour, but I think, yeah, it's a fairly oily and quite clean feeling Tripel, this one. And that's what really sets it apart, I think, from some of the Belgian ones I've had. It's got a nice oiliness to it, but it also feels a bit lighter because of the water, which is interesting. Like I was saying earlier, the malt base and yeasty qualities that you get out of this beer are quite nice and smooth. There's a wee bit of dryness to the beer later on, which is nice. The sweetness in the middle of your palate as well, the brown sugary notes come out as very oily in my mind, and the fruitiness does as well. So big oily fruits and a nice oily sweetness to the malt base too, and you've got a wee bit of dryness around the kind of edge of the tongue as well. So I would say maybe in terms of bitterness, I think about 15, maybe 20 IBUs at a push with this beer. But as a Tripel, it's a very nice example, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. So I can take my hat off once again to Eskilstuna for pulling off a nice example of a classic beer style. I really do think I need to get one or two of these and age them for a little bit. Get one of the quadruples and one of these and maybe age it for 3 years or something like that. That would be an interesting exercise actually, and then maybe review it along with the re-releases, because they re-release these beers every year actually. So yeah, a lovely Tripel, this one, a style that I always enjoy. If there are other examples of Swedish Tripels, out there, do let me know. There's so many breweries in Sweden these days, it's a bit difficult to keep track, but if you do have any other Tripel recommendations for me, those would be muchly appreciated, because I do enjoy this beer style. And the same with quadrupels and blondes. Those are my three favourite Belgian beer styles, along with the lambics and the Flanders Reds. So yeah, interesting to review this beer, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on this one. A really nice, clean, sort of brown sugary leaning Tripel, this one, in my mind. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Eskilstuna Ölkultur as well. No doubt we will return to these guys next month to see the new release that they have, and we'll leave it at that, and I'll catch you guys very soon. So yeah, the Eskilstuna Tripel from Eskilstuna Ölkultur in Eskilstuna, out to the west of Stockholm. Until the next time, Slanja just now, and I'll catch you guys soon. If you want a nice kind of sweet brown sugary leaning Tripel, this is one that's going to tick the boxes for you. Slanja, Skull, catch you guys later. Cheers.